The months that followed were a whirlwind of change for Laura and Daniel. Daniel kept his promise to make amends, reaching out to those he had wronged in the past. Some accepted his apology with grace, others demanded compensation, and a few refused to forgive him entirely. But through it all, Daniel remained steadfast, determined to take responsibility for his actions. Laura stood by his side every step of the way, offering encouragement and reminding him that redemption wasn't about perfection. It was about effort. As Daniel worked to repair the damage from his past, life at the estate continued to flourish. The garden bloomed brighter than ever, the house filled with laughter, and their creative projects brought them closer together. Laura painted scenes inspired by Daniel's architectural sketches, while Daniel designed structures that reflected Laura's artistic vision. Their collaboration became a symbol of their partnership, two people building something new from the ruins of their old lives. Ethan's recovery also progressed steadily. The hospital sent regular updates, each one bringing more good news. His condition improved day by day, and the doctors expressed optimism about his long-term health. Laura read every update with tears of gratitude, knowing how close she had come to losing him. She shared the reports with Daniel, who celebrated each milestone as if Ethan were his own son. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to Laura with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think Ethan will want to visit soon?" He asked gently. "I'd like to meet him." Laura smiled, touched by his sincerity. "I think he'd love that," she replied. "He's always been curious about where I've been staying. I'm sure he'll have plenty of questions for you." Daniel chuckled softly. "I'll do my best to answer them. Just don't let him ask about my cooking skills. He might lose all respect for me." Laura laughed, her heart swelling with affection. The idea of Daniel meeting Ethan felt like the final piece of the puzzle falling into place. Her son and the man who had changed her life would finally come together, creating a family she hadn't dared to dream of. When the day finally arrived, Laura was a bundle of nerves. She paced back and forth in the living room as they waited for Ethan's transport to arrive. Daniel noticed her anxiety and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's going to be fine," he said softly. "He's going to love you just as much as I do." His words caught her off guard, but before she could respond, the sound of a vehicle pulling up outside drew their attention. Laura rushed to the door, her heart racing. When she opened it, there stood Ethan, taller than she remembered, with a shy smile on his face. "Mom!" he exclaimed, throwing his arms around her. Laura hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. For a moment, nothing else mattered, just the feel of her son in her arms. When they finally pulled apart, Ethan glanced curiously at Daniel standing nearby. "Is this Daniel?" he asked hesitantly. Laura nodded, stepping aside, so Ethan could get a better look. "Yes, sweetheart. This is Daniel. He's the reason we're here today." Daniel extended his hand with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you, Ethan. Your mom talks about you all the time." Ethan shook his hand awkwardly, then grinned. "She does? What does she say?" "Oh, just how amazing you are," Daniel teased, glancing at Laura. "Though she didn't mention how much taller you've gotten." Ethan laughed, relaxing instantly. Over the next few hours, they spent time together, exploring the estate and sharing stories. Ethan marveled at the gardens, admired Laura's paintings, and even challenged Daniel to a game of chess. By the end of the day, it was clear that Ethan adored Daniel and Daniel clearly felt the same way about him. That night, as Ethan drifted off to sleep in one of the guest rooms, Laura joined Daniel on the porch. The stars twinkled overhead, casting a soft glow over the lake. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, savoring the peace of the moment. "He's incredible," Daniel said finally, breaking the quiet. "Just like his mom." Laura smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Thank you for everything. For saving him, for helping me, for being here now." "You saved me too," Daniel replied softly. "You reminded me what it means." to care, to hope, to live. I don't know where I'd be without you. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in the warmth of each other's presence. In that moment, Laura realized how far they had come. From desperation and loneliness to love and belonging, their journey had transformed them both. Together, they had built a life filled with purpose, joy, and family. A few weeks later, Daniel surprised Laura with an unexpected question. They were sitting by the fireplace after dinner when he turned to her with a nervous smile. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," he began. Laura raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What is it?" Daniel took a deep breath then. Reached for her hand. "Laura, you've given me so much a second chance, a home, a family. I can't imagine my life without you anymore. Will you stay here with me? Not because you have to, but because you choose to. As my partner, my equal, my everything." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she processed his words. It wasn't just a proposal, it was a declaration of love, trust, and commitment. She squeezed his hand, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes," she whispered. "Of course, yes." Daniel's face lit up with relief and happiness. He pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her as if he never wanted to let go. And Laura knew in that moment that she had found exactly where she belonged. In the months that followed, their lives continued to grow and evolve. Ethan settled into the rhythm of the estate, thriving under the care of both Laura and Daniel. They became a true family, bound not by blood, but by love and choice. Laura's paintings gained recognition, leading to small exhibitions in local galleries. Daniel returned to architecture, designing homes that combine beauty and functionality. Together, they created a life that was richer and fuller than either of them had ever imagined. On quiet evenings, as they sat together watching the sunset or reading by the fire, Laura often thought about how far they had come. She had started this journey desperate and afraid, willing to sacrifice everything for her son. But along the way, she had discovered something unexpected: love, healing, and a future worth fighting for. And as she looked at Daniel, his arm draped protectively around her shoulders, she knew one thing for certain: no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as equals, as partners, as a family. Their story was proof that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine through, guiding them toward a brighter tomorrow. Life at the estate took on a new rhythm after Daniel released Laura from her contract. The weight of obligation was gone, replaced by a sense of freedom and choice that Laura hadn't felt in years. She continued helping around the house, but now it felt less like work and more like contributing to a shared home. Every morning, she woke up with a lightness in her chest, knowing she was there because she wanted to be, not because she had to be. Daniel, too, seemed different. There was an ease in his demeanor, as if lifting the contract had freed him as much as it had freed her. He smiled more often, laughed more freely, and spent hours sketching designs while Laura painted nearby. Their creative partnership flourished, filling the house with color and life. It was during these moments that Laura realized how much they complemented each other. His precision balanced her spontaneity, and her warmth softened his reserved nature. But even in this newfound harmony, shadows from the past still lingered. One evening, as they sat together in the library, Daniel received a message on his tablet. His expression darkened as he read it, and Laura sensed something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked gently. Daniel hesitated before answering. "It's from my former business partner, Marcus. He's threatening to expose some things about me, things I've tried to leave behind." Laura leaned forward, concern etched on her face. "What kind of things?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Years ago, when I was younger and desperate to prove myself to my parents, I made some bad decisions. I cut corners, manipulated deals, and hurt people along the way. When I walked away from the business world to live here, I thought I'd left all that behind. But Marcus has evidence of what I did, and he's using it to blackmail me." Laura listened quietly, absorbing his words. She had always known Daniel carried scars from his past, but hearing the depth of his guilt broke her heart. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked softly. "I didn't want to burden you," he admitted. "You've already been through so much. I didn't think you needed to deal with my mistakes, too." "Daniel," Lavra said firmly, placing a hand on his arm, "you're not alone anymore. Whatever this is, we'll face it together." Her words seemed to surprise him. For a moment, he looked at her as if seeing her in a new light. Then he nodded slowly, gratitude softening his features. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know what I did to deserve someone like you." "You didn't have to do anything," Lavra replied with a small smile. "Sometimes we just need someone who understands." Over the next few days, they worked together to address Marcus's threats. Daniel explained everything to Laura: the deals he regretted, the people he had wronged, and the lengths he had gone to distance himself from that life. With her support, he decided to confront Marcus directly, refusing to let fear dictate his actions any longer. "I'll meet with him," Daniel said one afternoon as they prepared for the meeting. "I'll explain that I'm willing to make amends, but I won't let him control me anymore." Laura nodded, her heart pounding with nervousness. "I'll go with you," she offered, "if you want me to." Daniel hesitated, then smiled faintly. "That might actually help. Having you there will remind me why I'm doing this for us, for a better future." The meeting took place in a quiet cafe in town. Marcus arrived late, his sharp suit and smug expression making Laura instantly dislike him. He greeted Daniel coldly, barely acknowledging her presence. As they sat down, Marcus wasted no time getting to the point. "So, you've decided to show your face again," Marcus said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "I was starting to think you disappeared for good." "I'm here to settle this," Daniel replied calmly. "What do you want?" Marcus smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Money, of course. A lot of it. Or I'll release everything I know to the media. Your perfect little hideaway won't seem so perfect anymore." Laura felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. She glanced at Daniel, who looked tense but resolute. "There's another option," Daniel said evenly. "I'll admit my mistakes publicly and take responsibility for them. I'll compensate anyone I've harmed, but I won't give you a single credit." Marcus laughed bitterly. "You really think that'll stop me? People eat stories like yours alive. You'll lose everything." "Maybe," Daniel conceded. "But at least I'll be free of you and of the guilt I've carried for years. That's worth more than money." For a moment, Marcus looked taken aback. He studied Daniel closely, then shifted his gaze to Laura. "And what about her?" He sneered. "Does she know what kind of man you are?" Laura straightened in her seat, meeting his gaze steadily. "I know exactly who he is," she said firmly. "He's someone who's trying to become better, something you wouldn't understand." Marcus scowled, clearly frustrated by their united front. After a long pause, he stood abruptly. "Fine," he snapped. "Do what you want. But don't say I didn't warn you." As he stormed out of the cafe, Laura let out a shaky breath. "Do you think he'll follow through?" she asked quietly. "He might," Daniel admitted. "But at least now I'm ready for whatever comes. And I'm not facing it alone." Back at the estate, they discussed the next steps. Daniel planned to reach out to those he had wronged, offering apologies and reparations where possible. It wouldn't undo the past, but it was a starter step toward redemption. In the weeks that followed, Laura watched as Daniel transformed. He became more open, more vulnerable, sharing pieces of himself he had kept hidden for years. She admired his courage and determination, even when the process was painful. Together, they faced challenges head-on, supporting each other every step of the way. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Daniel turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You've changed me, Laura," he said softly. "Before you came into my life, I was stuck hiding from the world, hiding from myself. But you've shown me that it's never too late to start over, to be better." Laura smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "We've both changed," she replied. "You've given me strength I didn't know I had. And hope? I used to think happiness was impossible, but now I believe it's within reach." Daniel reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. "Then let's keep reaching for it together." As they sat in silence, the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls, Laura felt a profound sense of peace. They had faced the darkness of their past and emerged stronger for it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they could overcome them as long as they had each other. For the first time in her life, Laura truly believed in the possibility of a happy future, not just for Ethan, but for herself and Daniel. Together, they had built something beautiful, a foundation of trust, love, and hope. And nothing, not even the ghosts of their past, could tear that apart. The days grew warmer as spring settled over the estate. The garden bloomed with vibrant colors, and the air carried the sweet scent of flowers. Laura found herself spending more time outside, painting or simply sitting on the porch with a cup of tea. It was during these peaceful moments that she began to notice subtle changes in her relationship with Daniel. They had always been kind to each other, but now there was something deeper, a quiet understanding that passed between them. Without needing words, Daniel's presence felt comforting, like a steady anchor in her life. She caught herself looking forward to their shared meals, their evening walks, and even the simplest conversations about books or music. Yet, despite the growing closeness, neither of them spoke about what it meant. One evening, as they sat together, under the stars, Laura decided to break the silence. "Daniel," she began hesitantly, "do you ever think about us?" He turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she paused, searching for the right words. "We've become so close. You've done so much for me, for Ethan. But I can't help wondering, where does this leave us? What are we to each other?" Daniel sighed softly, leaning back in his chair. "I've thought about it too," he admitted. "But I didn't want to push you. After everything you've been through, I didn't want to make things complicated." Laura nodded, appreciating his honesty. "It's already complicated," she said with a small laugh. "I care about you, Daniel, more than I expected to. But I don't know if I'm ready for whatever comes next." "Neither am I," he confessed. "But maybe we don't have to figure it all out right now. Maybe we can just take it one day at a time." His words eased some of the tension in her chest. She realized she didn't need answers immediately. What mattered was that they were both willing to try to build something meaningful together. As the weeks went by, their connection deepened further. They shared more of themselves, opening up about their hopes, fears, and dreams. Daniel told Laura about his childhood dreams of becoming an architect before family pressures steered him toward business. Laura spoke about her love for art and how she used to dream of holding her own gallery shows. These conversations brought them closer, bridging the gap between employer and servant, creating something new entirely. One afternoon, while tidying up the library, Laura stumbled upon a sketchbook tucked away on a shelf. Curious, she opened it to find pages filled with detailed drawings of buildings, houses, bridges, even entire cityscapes. The style was unmistakably Daniel's. "You're talented," she said when he walked in and saw her holding the book. "Why did you stop drawing?" Daniel shrugged, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Life got in the way. Responsibilities, expectations. I guess I forgot how much I loved it." "Maybe it's time to remember," Laura suggested gently. "You could start again, and who knows? Maybe one day we could combine our passions, your designs, and my paintings." The idea lit a spark in Daniel's eyes. "That sounds perfect," he said, smiling. "Let's do it." From that moment on, they began working together creatively. Laura painted scenes inspired by Daniel's sketches, and Daniel designed structures based on Laura's artistic vision. Their collaboration became a source of joy, filling the house with energy and purpose. For the first time in years, Laura felt truly alive, But even as their bond strengthened, doubts lingered in the back of Laura's mind. She couldn't ignore the fact that their relationship existed within the framework of servitude. Though Daniel treated her with kindness, she knew the contract still bound her. What would happen when the terms of her agreement ended? Would Daniel expect her to leave, or would he ask her to stay? These questions weighed heavily on her, especially late at night when the house was quiet. She often lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was foolish to hope for a future beyond the contract. Was it possible to build a life with someone who had once owned her freedom? One morning, as Laura prepared breakfast, Daniel entered the kitchen with a serious expression. "We need to talk," he said. Her heart skipped a beat. Had her fears come true? Was he going to send her away? About what? She asked cautiously. "About your contract," he replied. "I've been thinking it's not fair to keep you tied to it. You've done more than enough. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. Your freedom is yours." Laura stared at him, stunned. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said firmly. "You deserve to make your own choices. No strings attached." Tears welled up in her eyes as relief washed over her. The weight of the contract had been a constant shadow, and now it was lifted. She could choose her path freely. "But," Daniel added hesitantly, "I hope you'll consider staying. Not because of obligation, but because I care about you. Because I want to keep building this life with you." His vulnerability touched her deeply. She realized then that Daniel wasn't just offering her freedom. He was offering her love. A chance to start anew, not as servant and master, but as equals. "I like that," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'd like to stay." A smile spread across Daniel's face, lighting up his eyes. "Then it's settled." He sighed. No contracts. Just two people choosing to be together. In that moment, Laura felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She had come to the estate desperate and afraid, but now she had found something unexpected. A home, a partner, and a reason to believe in happiness again. As they embraced, Laura whispered, "Thank you for everything." Daniel held her tightly, his voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for trusting me." And for the first time, Laura allowed herself to fully trust not just in Daniel, but in the possibility of a brighter future. Together, they had faced uncertainty and fear, and together they had found hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they would face them side by side. Laura's days at the estate settled into a rhythm that felt almost natural. She woke early, made breakfast, and completed her tasks around the house. In the afternoons, she often found herself sitting in the garden, watching the sunlight dance on the surface of the lake. It was during these quiet moments that she allowed herself to think about Ethan. She missed him desperately, but knowing he was receiving the care he needed brought her some peace. Daniel continued to check in on her regularly. He never pushed for conversation, but he always seemed to know when she needed someone to talk to. One evening, as they sat together in the parlor, Laura decided to ask him something that had been on her mind for weeks. "Why did you choose me?" she asked suddenly, her voice soft but steady. "Out of everyone, why me?" Daniel looked up from the book he was reading, surprised by the question. For a moment, he didn't answer. Instead, he closed the book and set it aside, his gaze thoughtful. "I saw your file," he began slowly. "Your situation? It reminded me of my own family. My parents worked themselves to the bone trying to save Emily, but in the end, they couldn't. Watching them struggle broke something inside me. When I read about you and Ethan, I saw the same determination, the same love. I wanted to help." Laura nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." "You're stronger than you think," Daniel replied. "You faced so much, and yet here you are still fighting for your son. That takes courage." His words stayed with her long after their conversation ended. They gave her strength, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this fight. But they also stirred something deeper within her, a growing admiration for Daniel. She had started to see him not just as her employer or benefactor, but as a person who carried his own scars and battles. As the weeks passed, their bond deepened. They spent more time together, sharing stories and laughter over meals. Daniel taught her how to play chess, patiently explained the rules until she could hold her own against him. Laura, in turn, shared recipes she remembered from her childhood, filling the house with the comforting aroma of homemade bread and stew. One afternoon, while they were walking through the garden, Daniel stopped suddenly and turned to her. "Do you ever think about what happens next?" he asked. Laura frowned, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean?" "I mean, after everything is settled, after Ethan is better, what will you do then?" The question caught her off guard. She hadn't allowed herself to think that far ahead. Her entire focus had been on surviving each day, on ensuring Ethan's recovery. The idea of planning for the future felt overwhelming. "I don't know," she admitted. "I guess I'll figure it out when the time comes." Daniel nodded, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "You deserve happiness, Laura. Not just survival, but real happiness. Don't forget that." His words lingered in her mind as they continued their walk. For the first time, she dared to imagine a life beyond servitude, beyond fear. Could she find happiness here, with Daniel? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. That night, as she lay in bed, Laura replayed their conversation in her head. She realized how much Daniel had changed her perspective. Before coming to the estate, she had viewed the world as a series of obstacles to overcome. But now, she began to see glimpses of beauty, the way the stars shimmered in the night sky, the sound of birds chirping in the morning, the warmth of Daniel's smile. These small joys had crept into her life unnoticed, filling the cracks left by years of hardship. Still, doubt lingered. Was it possible to trust Daniel completely? He had shown her nothing but kindness, but she couldn't shake the fear that someday the balance might shift. What if he grew tired of her presence? What if he decided she owed him more than she could give? Her fears came to a head one rainy afternoon. Laura was in the kitchen, preparing lunch, when Daniel entered carrying a stack of papers. His expression was serious, and for a moment, her heart sank. Had something gone wrong with Ethan's treatment? Was he about to tell her she had to leave? Instead, he handed her the papers. "These are updates from the hospital," he explained. "Ethan's responding well to the treatment. The doctors are optimistic." Relief washed over her, followed quickly by guilt. She had been so consumed by her worries about Daniel that she hadn't stopped to consider the progress Ethan was making. Tears filled her eyes as she read the report. Her son was getting better. "He was going to be okay. Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't thank you enough." Daniel smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. Just promise." "And me one thing. What's that?" she asked, wiping her tears. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself too. You've given so much of yourself for Ethan. Don't forget that you matter too." His words struck a chord deep within her. For so long, she had defined herself solely by her role as a mother. She had sacrificed everything, her dreams, her happiness for Ethan's sake. But now, standing in this beautiful house, surrounded by kindness and hope, she realized she deserved more. She deserved to live, not just survive. Over the following days, Laura made a conscious effort to embrace the little joys around her. She took longer walks in the garden, lingered over cups of tea, and even tried painting again using supplies Daniel had bought for her. Each brushstroke felt like a step toward reclaiming a part of herself she thought she'd lost forever. Daniel noticed the change in her and seemed pleased. "You're happier," he remarked one evening as they sat by the fireplace. "It suits you." Laura smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I think I'm starting to believe that maybe things can get better." "They already are," Daniel said gently. "And they'll keep getting better. Together. His words sent a shiver down her spine. Together. The idea of staying. With Daniel, of building a life with him was both exhilarating and terrifying. She cared for him deeply, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of the wall she had built around her heart. For now, though, she chose to focus on the present, on the quiet evenings, the shared laughter, and the growing sense of belonging. Whatever the future held, Laura knew one thing for certain. She had found a place where she could heal. And perhaps, just perhaps, she had found someone who could heal alongside her. The days that followed were unlike anything Laura had expected. Each morning, she woke up to sunlight streaming through the window of her cozy room. The air smelled fresh, carrying hints of flowers from the garden outside. For a moment each day, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she almost forgot where she was. Then reality would settle in the contract, the servitude, Ethan, and she would get up. Determined to make the best of her situation, Daniel kept his word about keeping things simple. Her tasks were manageable and spread out over the day, leaving her plenty of free time. She cleaned rooms, dusted shelves, and prepared meals, things she was used to doing in her old life. But here, everything felt different. There were no deadlines. Breathing down her neck, no angry customers complaining about slow service. It was quiet, peaceful, even at first. Laura approached her work with caution. She didn't want to make a mistake or overstep any boundaries. She avoided speaking unless spoken to and kept her head down, focusing on her chores. But Daniel noticed her reserved behavior and made an effort to put her at ease. One afternoon, as Laura was folding laundry in the living room, Daniel walked in carrying a stack of books. He set them on the coffee table and turned to her. "You don't have to rush," he said casually. "Take your time. This isn't a factory." Laura looked up, surprised by his tone. It wasn't demanding or critical, it was kind. "I'm just trying to do a good job," she replied hesitantly. "You are," Daniel assured her. "But you're also allowed to breathe. Relax a little. This place is supposed to feel like home, not a prison." His words caught her off guard. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, not in years. She nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. Daniel smiled faintly and left the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Over time, Laura began to notice small details about Daniel that softened her initial wariness. He often spent hours in his study, working on what looked like business documents. Sometimes, she'd hear him playing soft music on the piano in the parlor. He wasn't loud or intrusive. Instead, he seemed content to move through the house. Quietly, respecting her space. He also checked in on her regularly, asking if she needed anything or if the workload was too much. One evening, as they sat together in the kitchen after dinner, he asked about Ethan again. "How's he holding up?" Daniel asked gently. "Have you heard from him recently?" Laura shook her head. "Not yet. I sent him a message last week, but I haven't gotten a reply." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "It's hard not knowing how he's doing." Daniel nodded sympathetically. "I've arranged for updates from the hospital. They'll let us know when there's progress. In the meantime, try not to worry too much. He's strong, like his mother." Laura managed a weak smile. "Thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you." "You already have," Daniel said simply, "by trusting me. That's enough." Their conversations grew more frequent as the days passed. Laura found herself opening up to Daniel in ways she hadn't anticipated. She told him about her childhood, growing up in a small town, and how she dreamed of becoming an artist. Before life got in the way, Daniel listened intently, sharing bits of his own story in return. He spoke about his parents, who had pushed him relentlessly to succeed in business. "They wanted me to be perfect," he admitted one evening. "But perfection doesn't exist. All it did was isolate me. I built this estate because I thought it would shield me from the world. Turns out, it only made me lonelier." Laura studied his face as he spoke. There was a vulnerability in his eyes that reminded her of herself, a longing for connection, for understanding. It made her realize that beneath his composed exterior, Daniel was just as human as she was. Despite the growing bond between them, Laura still carried a weight of guilt. She couldn't shake the feeling that accepting Daniel's generosity came at a cost. Was she truly free, or was she merely trading one form of debt for another? These thoughts haunted her late at night when the house was silent, and she lay awake wondering about the future. One morning, while tidying up the library, Laura stumbled upon a photo tucked inside a book. It was a picture of a young girl, older than 10, with bright eyes and a wide grin. The resemblance to Daniel was unmistakable. Curious, she held the photo carefully, tracing its edges with her fingers. Daniel entered the room moments later and froze when he saw what she was holding. For a brief second, his expression hardened, but then he sighed and stepped closer. "That's my sister," he said quietly. "Her name was Emily, was?" Laura asked softly, sensing the sadness in his voice. Daniel nodded. "She passed away when we were kids. Cancer. My parents never recovered from losing her. Neither did I, really." Laura felt a lump rise in her throat. She understood loss all too well. Without thinking, she reached out and placed a hand on his arm. "I'm so sorry." He gave her a faint smile, his eyes glistening. "Thanks. I keep this photo around to remind me of happier times. Sometimes remembering helps." From that moment on, their relationship shifted subtly. Laura stopped seeing Daniel as just her employer. He became something more, a friend, perhaps. Someone who shared her pain and understood her struggles. They started spending more time together, whether it was walking through the gardens or sitting by the fireplace in the evenings. These moments brought them closer, weaving threads of trust and companionship into the fabric of their lives. As weeks turned into months, Laura began to feel a sense of belonging she hadn't known in years. The estate no longer felt foreign or intimidating. It felt like a sanctuary. And Daniel wasn't the cold, distant man she had imagined when she signed the contract. He was warm, thoughtful, and deeply compassionate. But even as her heart warmed to him, Laura couldn't ignore the lingering question. What did Daniel expect in return? So far, he had asked for nothing beyond her help around the house. Yet she knew that such kindness rarely came without strings attached. She wondered if the day would come when he would demand repayment, not in money, but in loyalty, obedience, or something else entirely. For now, though, she chose to focus on the present. On the quiet mornings, the gentle rhythm of daily chores, and the comfort of knowing Ethan was safe. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Laura vowed to face them with courage. After all, she had already endured so much. And maybe, just maybe, she had finally found a place where she could begin to heal. The journey to Earth was long and uncomfortable. Laura sat in a cramped seat aboard the transport shuttle, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Around her, other passengers chatted quietly or stared out the small windows at the endless expanse of stars. She tried to focus on the hum of the engines, hoping it would drown out the whirlwind of thoughts spinning in her mind. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the nagging questions. What kind of person was Daniel Carter? Would he treat her kindly, or would he be harsh and demanding? And most importantly, would she ever see Ethan again? When the shuttle finally touched down at a spaceport on Earth, Laura felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The air smelled different here, cleaner, fresher than the polluted atmosphere of New Chicago. As she stepped off the shuttle, she was greeted by a uniformed man holding a sign with her name written neatly on it. He introduced himself as Mr. Grayson's assistant and guided her to a sleek black car waiting outside. The drive to Daniel's estate took nearly an hour. Laura watched the scenery pass by, the rolling hills dotted with trees, the occasional farmhouse nestled among fields of green. It was beautiful, almost surreal compared to the crowded, gray cityscape she was used to. But despite the peaceful surroundings, she couldn't shake the tension gripping her chest. When they arrived, Laura's breath caught in her throat. The estate was massive, far grander than anything she had ever seen. A sprawling mansion stood atop a hill, surrounded by manicured gardens and a sparkling lake in the distance. The driver opened her door and escorted her to the front entrance, where a tall man with dark hair and sharp features awaited her. "Laura," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I'm Daniel Carter." She nodded, unsure of what to say. Up close, Daniel looked younger than she expected, perhaps in his late 30s. His eyes were warm, though there was a hint of sadness behind them that she couldn't quite place. He gestured for her to follow him inside. The interior of the house was just as impressive as the exterior. High ceilings, polished wood floors, and large windows let in streams of natural light. Laura felt completely out of place, like a speck of dust in a world too perfect for someone like her. "This way," Daniel said, leading her through a wide hallway. "I'll show you to your room." Her room turned out to be a cozy guest bedroom on the second floor. It was simple yet elegant, with soft bedding, a dresser, and even a small desk by the window. Laura set her bag down, feeling both grateful and uneasy. This wasn't what she had imagined when she signed the contract. Servitude usually meant cramped quarters and grueling work, not this luxury. "I'll give you some time to settle in," Daniel said before leaving her alone. "Dinner will be ready in an hour." Once he was gone, Laura sank onto the edge of the bed, her mind racing. Why was Daniel being so kind? Was this some sort of trick? Or did he genuinely mean to make her stay comfortable? She didn't know what to think, but one thing was certain. She needed to keep her guard up at dinner. Laura met Daniel in the dining room. The table was set with fine china and silverware, and the smell of roasted chicken filled the air. Daniel served her a plate, explaining that he preferred home-cooked meals over elaborate feasts. They ate in silence for a while, the clinking of utensils the only sound between them. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I imagine you're wondering why I brought you here." Laura glanced up, startled. "Yes, sir," she replied cautiously. "It's not what I expected." Daniel smiled faintly. "I don't blame you for thinking that. Most people assume the worst when they hear servitude, but I didn't acquire you because I need a worker. I saw your file depart about your son, and I wanted to help." Laura froze, her fork hovering halfway to her mouth. Help? No one had offered her help in years. She studied his face, searching for any sign of deception, but all she saw was sincerity. "You mentioned Ethan," Daniel continued. "How is he doing?" For a moment, Laura forgot where she was. She found herself talking about Ethan, his laugh, his love for drawing pictures, the way he lit up whenever she came home from work. She told Daniel about his illness, the crushing medical bills, and the fear that had driven her to sell herself into servitude. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her cheeks. Daniel listened intently, his expression thoughtful. When she was done, he leaned back in his chair. "You've been through a lot," he said gently, "and I want you to know that you're safe here. I'll take care of everything, including Ethan's treatment." Laura blinked, stunned. "What do you mean?" "I have connections at several hospitals," Daniel explained. "I can arrange for Ethan to receive the best care possible. All I ask is that you stay here and assist me around the house. Simple tasks, nothing overwhelming." Laura's heart swelled with gratitude, but doubt lingered. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "You barely know me." Daniel hesitated, his gaze dropping to the table. "Let's just say I understand what it's like to feel powerless, to watch someone you love suffer, and not be able to do anything about it. If helping you eases even a fraction of that pain, then it's worth it." His words struck a chord deep within her. For the first time since signing the contract, Laura allowed herself to hope. Maybe this arrangement wouldn't be as terrible as she feared. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a sliver of peace here. After dinner, Daniel showed her around the rest of the house. He pointed out the kitchen, the library, and the gardens, explaining that she was free to explore whenever she liked. He also gave her a tablet containing a list of daily tasks, tidying up rooms, preparing meals, organizing documents. Nothing seemed unreasonable, and Laura began to relax slightly. That night, as she lay in bed, Laura stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in her mind. She still didn't fully trust Daniel, but she couldn't deny the kindness he had shown her. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of optimism. Perhaps selling herself hadn't been the worst decision after all. Perhaps, in this strange new chapter of her life, she might find more than just survival. She might find a chance to heal Dot as sleep finally claimed her. Laura whispered a silent prayer for Ethan. Wherever he was, she hoped he was dreaming sweet dreams. And wherever she was going, she vowed to hold on to hope for both of them. The air in the small, dimly lit apartment was heavy with despair. Laura Bennett sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, staring at the crumpled medical bill in her hands. The numbers blurred as tears welled up in her eyes. She blinked them away, trying to focus, but no matter how many times she read it, the amount didn't change. It was far beyond anything she could ever afford. Her son, Ethan, lay asleep in the next room, his breathing shallow and uneven. He had been sick for weeks now, and every doctor visit only made things worse for him. Worse for her bank account. Worse for their future. Laura sighed deeply, running a hand through her tangled brown hair. She was only 32, but the stress of raising Ethan alone had aged her. Her once bright blue eyes were clouded with worry, and the lines around her mouth seemed deeper than they should be. She glanced toward the closed door of Ethan's room, guilt gnawing at her heart. How had it come to this? How had she let things get so bad? She thought back to the early days after Ethan's father left. He hadn't even stuck around long enough to see his son born. At first, Laura had managed okay. She worked 2 jobs as shift at a diner during the day and cleaning offices at night. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept food on the table and a roof over their heads. But then Ethan got sick. The doctor said it was something rare, something genetic, and that without treatment, he wouldn't survive. That was when reality hit like a freight train. Laura leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. She felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of her responsibilities. There was no one else to turn to. Her parents were gone, and she had no siblings. Friends? They had drifted away years ago, unable to keep up with her endless struggles. She was truly alone. Her gaze shifted to the small stack of papers on the coffee table. One of them caught her eye, a flyer advertising interstellar labor contracts. It promised quick cash for those willing to work off-world or serve wealthy individuals across the galaxy. Laura had seen similar ads before, but she'd always dismiss them. Selling yourself into servitude sounded like something out of a nightmare. Yet here she was, considering it. She picked up the flyer, studying the bold letters that promised a better life and financial freedom. The fine print warned of strict terms and conditions, but Laura barely registered those words. All she could think about was Ethan. If selling herself meant saving him, then maybe it was worth it. Maybe it was the only way. For hours she wrestled with the idea. What would happen to Ethan if she left? Who would take care of him? Could she trust anyone else to look after her boy while she was gone? And what kind of person would buy her contract? Would they treat her fairly, or would she end up in some horrific situation she couldn't escape? By morning, exhaustion had settled into her bones, but her mind was made up. She couldn't sit idly by while Ethan suffered. She needed to act, even if it meant making the hardest decision of her life. The next day, Laura dressed in the nicest clothes. She owned a plain black dress and a pair of scuff heels and headed downtown. The building where the contracts were processed loomed ahead, its glass facade reflecting the pale sunlight. People milled about outside, some looking nervous, others resigned. Laura swallowed hard and stepped inside. Inside, the atmosphere was cold and clinical. Rows of chairs lined the waiting area, occupied by men and women from all walks of life. Some clutched folders or bags, others stared blankly at the walls. Laura took a seat near the corner, clutching her own folder tightly. Inside were copies of her identification documents, proof of her qualifications, and a hastily written letter explaining her circumstances. She hoped it would make a difference. After what felt like an eternity, her name was called. A woman in. A crisp suit led her to a private office, where another official waited behind a desk. He introduced himself as Mr. Grayson and wasted no time getting down to business. He asked questions about her skills, her health, and her reasons for seeking a contract. Laura answered honestly, her voice trembling slightly as she explained Ethan's condition and her inability to pay for his treatment. Mr. Grayson nodded sympathetically, though there was a detachment in his expression that unnerved her. When he finished asking questions, he handed her a tablet. On it was a list of potential buyers, along with brief descriptions of their offers. Most were corporations or alien entities offering standard labor agreements. But one entry stood out: a human named Daniel Carter, who lived on Earth. His offer was higher than the rest, and the description mentioned that he preferred domestic workers. Something about it gave Laura a sliver of hope. "I'll take it," she said softly, pointing to Daniel's name. Mr. Grayson raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? Once you sign, there's no going back." Laura hesitated, her heart pounding. Then she nodded firmly. "I'm sure." With shaking hands, she signed the contract, her signature sealing her fate. As she left the building, she felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because she finally had a plan, however desperate. Dread because she had no idea what awaited, or whether she'd ever see Ethan again. That night, as she tucked Ethan into bed, Laura kissed his forehead and whispered, "Mommy loves you more than anything. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." Ethan stirred slightly, mumbling something incoherent before drifting back to sleep. Laura lingered by his bedside, memorizing every detail of his face. Tomorrow, she would leave for Earth, leaving behind everything familiar. But deep down, she knew she had made the right choice. For Ethan, she would endure anything, even the unknown horrors of servitude.